Good evening, YouTube. This is Johnny. Thought I'd make a video. My wife will be gone she's taking this big, huge test at the hospital tonight from 5 o'clock until 11 o'clock. So I mentioned I was going to do this tag that's been going around in BookTube. It's called Reading the Humanities Tag. I think it was originated from Richard Reed's, and a couple of days ago I wrote down I put down the questions in my online diary, Crookedfingers, and I thought I would make a video going through this tag, Reading the Humanities Tag. So yeah, it is today. It is April the 17th. 2019. It is 6:04 in the evening here in West Michigan. It's been a gray, partly cloudy day. It's getting warmer. Things are starting to bud. The birds are start building their nests, and so hopefully by May there should be some flowers and tulips, because we have tulip time here in Holland. We have thousands and thousands of tourists come here to see the tulips and Dutch dancing and the Dutch tulip parade and all kinds of activities around Dutch culture. So, but I was going to do the Reading the Humanities Tag. The first question is, there's 11 questions. Name a book or author who uses the field of or concepts from anthropology in their work. Well, when I think of anthropology, I think of systematic theology. That's one of the heads of systematic theology, the doctrine of man. You have the doctrine of God, the doctrine of Christ, the doctrine of salvation, the doctrine of the church. So what came to my mind was these two books. This is Calvin's Doctrine of Man, John Calvin, by T.F. Torrance, Calvin's Doctrine of Man. And then one I was been reading last year, and I put it aside for a while. It's called Human Nature from Calvin to Jonathan Edwards by Paul Helm. So when it comes to anthropology, I would recommend any Reformed systematic theology on the doctrine of man, and John Calvin's Doctrine of Man by Torrance, and Human Nature from Calvin to Edwards by Paul Helm. Another book came to my mind, and I don't know why, I'm just going to mention it. Maybe you can figure it out. It's Aldous Huxley's Ape in Essence, a novel. Every time I think of anthropology from a secular, I keep thinking of this novel, and I don't know why. Maybe you can tell me. Question 2, a book or author who uses archaeology in their works. Well, I don't have this book, but it came to my mind when I was really young. I used to read James A. Michener's novels, and he wrote a novel called The Source, which is about Israel, Palestine, archaeology. That's what came to my mind. Something I could think of. Question 3, have you read a work from ancient Greece or Rome? If so, what was it, and do you have a favorite author or work? Well, I don't really read ancient Greece or Rome books, but I did read this book a couple of years ago, Augustus, a novel by John Williams. In Augustus, his third great novel, John Williams took an entirely new challenge. Historical narrative set in classical Rome, exploring the life of the founder of Rome, of the Roman Empire. To tell the story, Williams turned to the epistolary novel, a genre that was new to him, transforming and transcending it, just as he did the Western and Butcher's Crossing and the campus novel Stoner. Augustus is the final triumph of a writer who has come to be recognized around the world as an American master. So yeah, this is a historical novel on Augustus, the founder of the empire, of the Roman Empire. That's all I could think of. 4, history. Do you have a favorite historical period you enjoy reading about? If so, what is it? Any books stand out? Well, as I mentioned in my last 3 years over videos, my favorite period is American history from about 1790 until about 1855, 1860, the time of the American Transcendentalists. And I would recommend, as you all know, one of my favorite books is Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays and lectures. I recommend this volume, the Library of America edition. I read this all the time, and it's one of my favorite books. Also, I recommend Walden by Henry David Thoreau, who was friends with Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he has written all kinds of books. I didn't bring them all up here, but you know who I'm talking about. This is the Everyman's Library edition of Walden Pond. Well, Walden. I also recommend Henry David Thoreau, The Journal from 1837 to 1861. This is in the New York Review Basic Classics series. New York Review Books Classics. And this is his journals, Thoreau. So I recommend those. Question 5, linguistic or languages. Reading is about language, among other things. What is your favorite translated work of literature? Well, I have many, but I read this novel several years ago, and it stands out as one of my favorite translated works. It's called The War of the End of the World by Mario Vargas Llosa. And this is translated by Helen Lane. I think it was out of, it's out of Portuguese or Spanish. Oh, I can't remember. It doesn't say, but it was either Portuguese or Spanish. Anyway, it's one of my favorite translated works. The War of the End of the World by Mario Vargas Llosa. Question 6, law and politics. Do you read political books or books related to the law? What are your favorites? Well, I don't really have any favorites, but I'm always reading books on politics, books on economics. And these are ones I'm reading right now on politics and economics. And is The Marshall Plan, The Dawn of the Cold War by Ben Steele. Nervous States, Democracy and Decline of Reason by William Davies. The Future of Capitalism, Facing the New Anxieties by Paul Collier. So these are ones I'm reading right now when it comes to politics. And yeah. So 7, literature does not have a universally accepted definition. What is yours? I don't have any definition of literature. Question 8, philosophy is the love of wisdom. Have you read a work of philosophy? Well, I've read philosophy for many years. Do you have a favorite? No. But I do. Well, one of my novel philosophy when I was really young was The Myth of Sisyphus and other essays by Albert Camus. Also, I recommend this book I read a couple years ago, At Existentialist Cafe, Freedom, Being, and Apricot Cocktails by Sarah Bakewell. This kind of represents my earlier youth, existentialism, but books I really recommend now when it comes to philosophy and the seeking after wisdom is Virtue and the Voice of God Towards a Theology as Wisdom by Daniel J. Trier, and To Know and Love God, a Method for Theology. I recommend these when you talk about philosophy. Question 9, religion. Name a book or author that you have read that has influenced your personal view of religion. Well, I've always mentioned the collected works of St. John of the Cross. I show that all the time. But also Calvin's Institutes. John Calvin, the French Protestant reformer, has been a major influence in my own spiritual thinking besides the Bible. As you all know, first of all, it's not John Calvin, but is the Word of God, especially the Apostle Paul, Pauline theology. And but I was looking through Calvin's Institutes, and when I was in Bible college and seminary, these were textbooks. You had to read them. And I've been reading John Calvin, his sermons, his treatises, his letters, his biographies, for many, many, many years. You can't go wrong reading John Calvin. I mean, you pick them up, Institutes of Christian Religion. You'll be really surprised how warm and spiritually vitalistic they are. It says here, 10, performing arts, musicology, theater and dance often put the performer in front and center. Do you have a favorite performer? Well, my favorite performer has always been Bob Dylan, maybe Damien Gerard, Nick Cave, the Afghan Whigs, especially Greg Dulles, people like that, Tom Waits, Van Morrison, people like that stand out in my mind. But when it comes to Bob Dylan, one of my favorite Bob Dylan biographies is Positively 4th Street, The Lives and Times of Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Minnie Baez, Fahrenheit, and Richard Fahrenheit. Yeah, Bob Dylan, especially early Bob Dylan. I listen to music all the time, all kinds of music, pop, rock, metal, country, folk, world music, jazz, classical. But early Bob Dylan I really liked, I can listen to anytime. Visual arts, question, this is the last question, question 11. Visual arts, do you have a favorite visual artist? And yes, it is Jackson Pollock. I recommend this biography, Jackson Pollock, An American Saga by Stephen Naphial and Gregory White Smith. This is a table book of his art. Jackson Pollock, he was an abstract painter in the 50s, maybe 40s, 50s, 60s. And he is my favorite visual artist. So I really like looking at his paintings and reading about his life. So I say Jackson Pollock. Last week, our son Josiah, he sent me a postcard from a museum in Seattle area. That's where they live, and it's a postcard of Jackson Pollock painting. So my kids know what their dad likes, Jackson Pollock. So those are the questions for the Humanities Tag. So you can look at Richard Reed's, and I think Steve Donahue has done it. Some other people have done the Reading Humanities Tag. So yeah, that's about it. I did go out today and visit thrift stores, and I got a ton of books today. I think I got at least, let me see, 12, 15 used books. I have about 20 used books I haven't shown in a video. I'll get around to doing that. But I want to get these books down to the lower level, getting them off to the red pile, getting them out of the living room. Things are getting too crowded in the living room. So I hope you're having a good day. This is, like I said, this is a Wednesday here in West Michigan. It is now 6:19 at night. It is April the 17th. And yeah, so I'll sign off. Thank you for the new subscribers. Thank you for the comments. Hope you're having a great Holy Week as we look forward to the resurrection, the death and resurrection and ascension and rule of Christ. He died on the cross, but he also rose again, and then he ascended, and now he reigns over the heavens and the earth. And then one day he'll bring his church and the elect into the state of glory to dwell with him forever. So that's kind of cool to think about. So I'll sign off. Until next time, bye.